What's the hubbub? Michael Jackson just moonwalked on the face of Snyder Bros. As Michael has grossed over $713 million worldwide, making it the second highest grossing film of the year. One could say in Michael versus Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, he beat it. Also later in this video, I'm deep diving a claim that Millie Alcock has went full Rachel Zegler. I'll explain what she said and why. I'll also go over some major DCU updates. To start though, let's talk about the Man of Steel versus MJ. What makes the comparison sting for a lot of SnyderVerse only fans known as Snyder Bros, Snyder Riders, Snyder Copium Queens, is that Man of Steel released during the absolute peak of the superhero movie boom and still couldn't cross $700 million worldwide. In 2013, comic book films were dominating Hollywood. The Avengers had just exploded the year before. Audiences were fully invested in cinematic universes, and superhero fatigue basically didn't exist yet. That same year, Iron Man 3 made around $1.2 billion globally, while even solo superhero movies were routinely putting up massive numbers. So, when a Superman reboot directed by Zack Snyder and backed by Christopher Nolan finished in the $600 million range, many people saw it as underperforming relative to the era, the marketing, and Superman's status as one of the most iconic fictional characters ever created. That's why people online make jokes when a movie like Michael passes $700 million. A music biopic is not traditionally expected to outperform Superman during the biggest superhero craze in movie history. Critics of the Snyder era use it as an example that DC never fully capitalized on the comic book boom the way Marvel did. The comparison gets even harsher in hindsight, because Marvel was turning characters like Iron Man into billion-dollar global brands, while DC's cinematic universe launch struggled to hit numbers many expected Superman to reach automatically. The proud Snyder Bro groupthink identity is crumbling over this. By the way, take a moment to subscribe here at the Hubbub. Tap the notification to be kept in the loop of my latest DCU versus DCU and DC updates going on. Now the debate has shifted again, because supporters of Superman under James Gunn rightfully argue that it actually performed better for its era than Man of Steel did for its own. By 2025, the superhero genre is in a far weaker position than it was in 2013. Multiple Marvel movies have underperformed compared to their peak years. Audience fatigue is constantly discussed. Streaming has hurt theatrical momentum, and comic book films are no longer automatic billion-dollar events. In that environment, Gunn's Superman outperforming all three Marvel movies released around it becomes a major talking point, because it suggests the new DCU may actually be building stronger audience trust than the Snyder-era DCEU did at launch. The stats and optics also line up better for the DCU reboot. Gunn's Superman reportedly had stronger audience scores, better word of mouth, and healthier box office legs relative to modern superhero competition. Meanwhile, the old DCEU had a pattern where huge opening hype often dropped fast after release. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice famously opened enormous but collapsed in later weeks, which became symbolic of the entire Snyder-era rollout: massive online hype, divisive reception, and inconsistent long-term momentum. By contrast, Gunn supporters argue the new DCU is focusing more on broader audience appeal, character chemistry, and long-term planning instead of relying mainly on spectacle and hardcore fandom energy. The other thing helping the DCU narrative is that it actually looks organized. Instead of constantly rebooting midstream, the new universe already has projects like Supergirl, starring Milly Alcock, Lanterns, Clayface, and future Superman follow-ups like Superman Man of Tomorrow being discussed as part of a connected roadmap. Fans also point out that David Corenswet and Millie Alcock already seem positioned to make meaningful appearances across multiple projects, helping the universe feel interconnected early. People compare that to the later DCEU years, where Henry Cavill was reduced to awkward faceless or headless Superman cameos because of studio chaos and contract issues, which became one of the biggest symbols of how directionless the franchise looked near the end. That's basically where the SnyderVerse's over jokes come from online. Critics frame it like this: Zack Snyder had Superman during the superhero gold rush and couldn't produce a billion-dollar breakout, while James Gunn inherited a damaged DC brand during superhero fatigue and still generated stronger relative momentum. At this point, the jokes practically write themselves. The DCU reboot already has healthier legs than the SnyderVerse had in its prime. WB spent a decade trying to recover from one neck snap. Superman finally discovered colors exist, and the SnyderVerse fandom still fighting for restoration, while Gunn is busy building an actual cinematic roadmap. Online movie fans can be brutal, and every strong DCU update just fuels more jokes that the SnyderVerse has gone from cinematic universe to collector's edition mythology. The comparison people make between the DCU under James Gunn and the older DCEU era under Zack Snyder usually comes down to planning versus reacting. In the current DCU approach, Superman is being positioned as a foundation film first, with sequels and major villains expected to come later in a more structured way. Characters like Brainiac are often discussed by fans as natural next-step threats, where escalation is earned after the audience is already invested in the world and version of Superman. In contrast, the older DCEU trajectory after Man of Steel is often seen as more reactive. Instead of a direct, straightforward Superman sequel, the follow-up quickly shifted into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which tried to combine multiple universe-building goals at once. That included setting up the Justice League, introducing Batman in a major role, and expanding the wider world, all while still continuing Superman's arc. Many fans feel that this compressed approach reduced the space for a focused Superman continuation. Because of that, the comparison people point out is that the Snyder era felt like it was adjusting direction quickly based on studio pressure to build a shared universe fast, while the Gunn-era DCU is being framed as more deliberate. Instead of rushing into crossover events or multiple major storylines early, the idea is to establish Superman properly first and then scale up into bigger threats like Brainiac in later projects. That's why fans describe it as planned escalation versus forced expansion. One approach is seen as building outward step by step, while the other is viewed as pivoting too quickly from a solo Superman story into a larger universe setup. In the news, we have recently seen DC Studios' Lanterns has reportedly added Christopher Cantwell as a writer and executive producer for a potential second season. Cantwell is known for co-creating AMC's critically acclaimed *Halt and Catch Fire*. This is a great sign of confidence that we are entering Season 2 planning so quickly. Also, towards Supergirl, we saw some new footage showing David Corrin Sweat as Superman and Jason Momoa as Lobo. Milly Alcock is all in on the role and is over the cyberbullying.
Blame people like me. I am a Christian and a father of 4 amazing kids. And I'm the problem? I'm the problem? First of all, bot accounts are not real people. You can't piss off a bot account. But you know who you can piss off? The Christian, the dad of 4. Because I'm both of those. I'm actually Christian, and I am a father of 4 daughters. So she thinks I'm the problem. I'm the problem. Maybe she's the problem. We've seen women do this in Hollywood, and it never ends up well. We saw it happen with Rachel Zegler.
Any comments she has made are at that nasty segment of man-child losers. This is nothing like Rachel Zegler's situation. Anyone saying that is an uneducated liar. In interviews, Zegler stated that the original film's focus on a love story involving a man who literally stalks her was weird. Fans were frustrated when she called the classic cartoon dated. Disney purists felt she was disparaging a beloved classic rather than honoring it. Millie, in contrast, said she told herself to just fucking go for it. When accepting the role of Supergirl, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, who am I to turn down this opportunity? What are you, scared? Get over yourself, end quote. Her version of Supergirl isn't made to be perfect. She will be messy and have human-like flaws, getting away from the girl boss tropes and not having to be some perfect leader. Also, she pointed out the hypocrites who have social media accounts presenting as God-fearing men with families, but acting nothing like it. There is nothing woke about recognizing the hatred of insults and a near irony of how they present their social media profiles by saying, quote, "A lot of people whose profiles have no photo, who are burner accounts, or someone's name, and then dad of 4 Christian," which is hilarious to me. But I mean, whose opinion do you really care about? If you're pissing the right kind of people off, you're doing okay, end quote. The online terrorists are constantly posting the toxic insults towards her. It's a fact, and she's right to point it out. She's been dealing with a lot of online harassment. Anyone with kids, especially a daughter, should be speaking out against the cyberbullying of her. The crass, toxic insults about looks have been a harsh burden to bear as she took on this role. A lot of it's from Snyder Bros, who just think bullying is the answer. It's pathetic. Anyone with a soul should denounce the sickness of behavior towards Millie. Disgusting idiots indeed. By the way, via Variety, Millie Alcock will return as Supergirl in Man of Tomorrow. "She's a major part of what we're doing," says producer Peter Safran. According to James Gunn, quote, "I'm shooting with her now. She's wonderful," end quote. So no surprise she is in the Brainiac-led sequel of the Superman saga. Speaking of which, per The Hollywood Reporter, Lars Eidinger on Brainiac in Man of Tomorrow stated, "Brainiac is described as the incarnation of Satan. I find that almost Shakespearean. The king, the fool. There are so many parallels for me," end quote. I really like this, as we've seen Satan depicted in many ways through stories, from not always the obvious evildoer and manipulating behind the scenes to the evil tyrant taking mankind down, using and preying on the worst human qualities. Lars Eidinger says he was also struck by what he saw on the set of Man of Tomorrow. "Last week I was on set during rehearsals and asked if I could watch some of the filming, which had already started, and I saw an actor in the Superman costume suspended on wires in front of a blue screen. I looked at that image and thought, this is the essence of fiction. It's as significant an image as Hamlet holding the skull, Superman, in that Superman pose, hanging from wires in front of a blue screen. As you can see, full momentum is building now for the DCU. Get on the train or get left behind." With that, it's today's Hubbub. Please subscribe and remember, no SnyderVerse, no problem.